Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you also who are watching us online today. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. So we are going to start service number 3 on page 117. And you know we have this custom pre-COVID at KLS that during half term we do more to our study, and it's a shorter service and more to our study. So today we're going to study a very fascinating passage of a Parashat Azriya, but I'll give it to you later. How are you? You okay? Ça va? Oh. Page 117, please stand. Please be seated. We thank you, O God, for this new day, for morning sun and evening star, for flowering of tree and flowing of tide, for life-giving rains and cooling breezes, for the changing seasons, for the cycle of growth and decay, of life and death. We awake and behold a new day. O God, renew us unto life. Teach us to recognize your presence in creation. Grateful for your gifts, may we dedicate all our powers to your service. Page 118. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ayef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המעביר שינה מעיניי ותנומה מעפעפיי. ברוך שאמר והיה העולם ברוך הוא. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המהולל בפי עמו, משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידיו ועבדיו, בשברות ובזמירות נגדלך ונמליך, מלכנו יחיד העולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מהולל בתשבחות. With the coming of day and night, I will enter the covenant of God. And when evening and morning depart, I will recite God's decrees. God Most High, you are my righteousness. You teach me goodness. You are the fountain of knowledge, the dwelling place of holiness, and the summit of glory. Eternal might and majesty are yours. I will choose whatever you teach me, gladly accepting your judgments. As soon as I move my hands and feet, I will praise your name when I go out and when I come in, when I lie down and when I rise up. When I rest on my bed, I will sing your praise, and in the company of my friends, I will praise you with the words of my mouth. Page 121. The righteous shall flourish like the palm, grow tall like the cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Eternal One, they shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall still bear fruit in old age. They shall ever be fresh and green, proclaiming that God is just, my rock, in whom there is no flaw. So let's turn to page 135 for the Yishtabach, on page 135. And please stand. Sorry. We'll do the Yishtabach first, sorry.
As you are.
Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu, אל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל ושמחה, ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בשירי זמרה. Yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da. Baruchu et Adonai, Please be seated. Page 136. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, sovereign of the universe, maker of light and creator of darkness, author of peace and creator of all things. In your mercy, you give light to the earth and all who live on it, and in your goodness, you renew creation, continually day by day. How manifold are your works, O God! With wisdom have you made them all. The world is full of your creations. Your handiwork proclaims your praise. The radiant stars bear witness to your glory. We praise you, O God, creator of light. Let's read together. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truth of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name, for in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called the people Israel to serve you. Please stand. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת. Please be seated. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are a sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song. Sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty. Adonai yimlo leolam vaed tzur Israel kuma bezrat Israel goaleinu Adonai tzevaot shemo kedosh Israel Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Israel, Gal Israel, Israel. So the next part of the service, as I explained at the start, will be the Amidah for Peace, Justice and Migration, which we read which we used together, I think, a couple of weeks ago, which I think is really timely and very much what we need to hear at the moment. And we will do, after the Amidah, we'll do a Torah study on the first 8 verses of chapter 18, and it's... we love it. So, yes, you know what I mean. Can you pass this to Gerard? And can you share it? Yes. Oh, so can you share it together with both of you? You can share it. I mean, don't distract the share. All right. So please stand for the God of ancestors, God of migrants, God of refugees, we are border crossers. We tie our fate with you who cannot be contained by customs offices, you who requires no passport. Gevurot, you are the power that nurtures. You support the fallen, you free the captive, you give faith to those who sleep in the dust. Kedusha, we call out to each other. We turn in every direction Your holy image is the face of every human being. Bina. Help us to act with understanding. Teshuvah. Return us again and again to your service. Selicha. Forgive us for retreating to our own comfort. Forgive us for not taking responsibility. Forgive us for letting little fears stop us from helping with compassion. Geula. Release us from captivity. Release us from persecution. Release us from misfortune. Help us to heal when rational arguments are insufficient. Refuah. Heal the suffering that causes people to flee their home. Birkat Hashanim. All bountiful one, let every person live with abundance. Kibbutz Galuyot. Blast the great shofar for freedom. Gather in all those in exile. Din. Restore justice with love and compassion. Birkat Haminim. Let all wickedness be lost. Tzadikim. Protect all the righteous people fleeing war and fleeing poverty. Be with those seeking safety and seeking security. Binyan Yerushalayim. Build everlasting peace in Jerusalem. Yeshua. Plant your help in every land. Kabbalat Tefillah. Hear our voice. Hear the voice of refugees. Hear the voice of immigrants. Help us hear your voice. Avodah. Take pleasure, Adonai, in our work. Lovingly accept our prayer. Hoda'ah. Modim anachnu lach. We give thanks to you. Birkat Shalom. May peace descend from high. So we take a few moments to reflect on this wonderful Amidah, and then we come back together for Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom b'Yomav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol bnei So I took the man voice naturally. I didn't do the. I left it to you.
You should learn the tenor part. That's the part that's missing at the moment.
The tenor. Oh God! How high does it go?
It's not very high and it's not very difficult.
Okay, so if you could give me the sheet, maybe I can have a look. Yes, yeah. Okay, so first I'd like to greet all our friends who are online. And I can see that Shannon is here. Shannon, also you're in Johannesburg now. Okay. I hope you have a better weather than here. Tina and Neil, I'm glad to see you here. We have Sandra Levine. I hope you're both okay, Sandra. Sending you much love and healing. Deborah as well from Bradford. And of course, as you, Michelle Lafitte. And Ray Stone is here as well, Ray and Linda. Okay, so Shabbat Shalom, it's good to have you. So
There's also a Leonardo on YouTube from Brazil.
Sorry, who?
Leonardo.
Leonardo from Brazil, wow. Gosh. Where about? Does he say where? No? I mean, it's big, Brazil. No? So welcome to KLS. I'm sure you don't have all these warm clothes on you there. Still the summer. Huh? Right, okay, so there's a very, very confusing passage in the Parashat Azriah, which we try always very cleverly to avoid. Because it's really, wow, and we are not the first to actually really struggle with this passage. I looked up a bit in what was said in more traditional commentaries, and they all struggle. And this is what I'm going to read the text first. So you have online. Craig has put the link to get it, and you all have. So Leviticus chapter 12. If you have a Chumash with you, the Eternal spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people thus: When a woman at childbirth bears a male, she shall be impure 7 days. She shall be impure as at the time of the condition of menstrual separation. The nida, the nida separation lasts 7 plus 7. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall remain in a state of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated things, nor enter the sanctuary until her period of purification is completed." Okay, Pashut seems quite simple. You have 40 days, which is a very important number in Judaism, the completion, etc. Now, if she bears a female, she shall be impure 2 weeks, as during her menstruation, and she shall remain in a state of blood purification for 66 days. On the completion of her period of purification for either son or daughter, she shall bring to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting a lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, and a pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering. He shall offer it before the Eternal and make expiation on her behalf. She shall then be pure from her flow of blood. Such are the rituals concerning her who bears a child, male or female. And then you've got, if she doesn't have enough money for a sheep, she can bring a pigeon, etc., whatever. Okay. So you can imagine, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the first thing we really need to understand when you read this text, there is no judgment. Boys, girls, pashut. It doesn't say, because girls are less of this and that. It's just a statement. Now, of course, wow. So of course, I had a look in some commentaries before coming before you because I wanted to understand. To be honest, I've been struggling with this text for as long as I've known it. So why do you have 40 days and 80 days? Why do you have 7 days for a boy and 14 days for a girl? So before I go into that, how do you read this text? So online you can also add things. I will have a look at your commentaries. Yeah.
There's so much written about it. There really is, because as you said, everybody struggles. But there's some thought that, for example, some feminist readings are trying to suggest that actually this was a way of protecting the mother and the new baby, and kind of giving them time to recover and to make sure everything was all right and to bond without having to go back to doing all the housework and everything. Meanwhile, the rest of the people take care of themselves, and the new mother got to just spend the time with the baby. So that's one thought. But the changing in times, there's a lot of thought about the idea that because a mother giving birth to another potential life giver, that there's a double time for that, because there's the two of them. And a lot of it also goes around, I think, this whole thing about that how because in this day and age, I mean, nobody really understood physiology in the way that we did when this was written. So how do you ever come to trust something that bleeds once a month and doesn't die? It's just so counterintuitive. I mean, ordinarily you see somebody bleeding, oh my goodness, trying to do something about it, but this kind of ritual thing, so there's a couple of different ways of interpreting it, and it's just something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's...
I read a really interesting one, a Leo Beck student wrote something about it, someone who is expecting a baby, and it hit her a whole different way, which made me actually think about it differently.
Yeah, because, you know, the two, we understand this as an imbalance between boys and girls. It's longer for a girl and it's shorter for a boy. But again, if you look at the text itself, there's no value judgment here.
I mean, that's why.
Yeah, we don't know.
We know more than they knew, so we don't know that this is not mysterious. That
So I found a very interesting text about, you know, their knowledge of medicine. There are three, it's in the Talmud Nida, which is precisely a tractate that discusses all the ritual impurity of a woman who had her period.
And it's already centuries later, so...
Oh yeah, talking about, so maybe 5-6 centuries later, so it's quite, yeah. So there are three partners in the procreation of the person. The father is said to supply the seed, mazriya, of the body with white substances, such as bones, sinews, nails, the brain, and the white of the eyes. It's not me, it's in the Talmud. The mother supplies the seed, mazra'at, of what the rabbis consider to be red substances, such as the skin, flesh, blood, and the pupil of the eye. And God gives the child its breath, along with beauty of feature, eyesight, the powers of hearing and speaking, the ability to walk, and intellectual capacity. So, of course, you know, as you said, the knowledge of medicine compared to what we know today is nothing. You know, there's another passage which says, so, you know, tazriya means seed. So they had the idea that men and women had seeds. So it was two different types of seeds. So, where is it? Okay. Men and women emit seeds. If the female emits her seeds first, she bears a male child. If a male emits his seeds first, she bears a female child. So they try, you know, it's interesting because we don't know why we have boys or girls. We don't know. And there's something fascinating is whatever happens, it's always, you know, more or less 50%. There are more boys, you know, by a small fraction, but very quickly, a year after, it's 50% boys and girls. Why?
Boys are much more likely to die.
Yes, exactly. More fragile than girls. Yeah, that's an interesting feature as well. So, you know, all these questions, we don't know why. We don't know. So that's an attempt of biblical author to try to make sense of, you know, the difference. So I came across another thesis or hypothesis which says comparing the rituals around childbirth. So in the ancient Near East, a woman giving birth was considered as a source of impurity. So yesterday, for those who came, we talked about purity and impurity, and in a biblical context, there's no value judgment. If you're impure, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It's not that at all, and that's very difficult because purity and impurity have taken such a strong judgment today.
Yeah, because they're the only words we have for translating it. But yes, the feel is completely.
It's different. Yes, yeah.
So we're applying the connotations because we translate as pure and impure.
Yeah.
It's our connotations that we're putting.
Yeah.
And it comes from Christianity as well, because Christianity, which is more based on kind of a Greek philosophy, you know, with very sometimes, you know, you've got this notion of purity and impurity, but
original sin and all
this. Yeah, we don't have that in Judaism. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's very difficult sometimes to read and to understand, but what we discovered yesterday when we talked about impurity, it's ritual impurity and it's a connection, like in the text. If you're ritually impure, you can't touch anything that is sacred. Because it's also a conception of God, a God who is completely different. So when you touch body, etc., you enter something which is ungodlike. Yes, please.
I'm just back that a little bit because these were really about temple laws.
Mm-hmm.
And this little thing about not touching anything sacred was what, for a number of years, men used to argue that women should not be called up to Torah because there was every chance they could be impure, and so therefore, and actually these were about the temple times, and I think that it's dangerous when we move it forward because they really only apply to temple sacrifices and things like that. And we don't do those anymore, so...
Absolutely, yeah. And the Torah scroll doesn't have the same status of sacredness like the temple. The Torah scroll is, yes, a very important object, of course, and it's not sacred. Yes.
It's just a piece of parchment.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so...
the words inside it.
Exactly, yeah, and the meaning, the value, the symbols that these words carry, absolutely. That's what's sacred in it, yeah, absolutely. So there was also, I came across a few very funny things about this. So they believe that male embryos were completely formed in 41 days, and that female embryos in 82 days. But, I mean, there's something which came from someone writing from a social history perspective. She's a biblical scholar, and she compared the rituals of childbirth in the Bible to the ritual of childbirth in the Hittite society. So the Hittites lived in modern-day Turkey, and there was quite a strong... We don't know much about them, but they're a very, very strong empire. So what she discovered is that actually this is kind of a kind of ritual announcement of a gender of a child. Right? So it's a process of gendering people based on their biological sex in order to maintain a sort of social order. So men and women are different. Now, she doesn't talk about the length, because in the Hittite text we don't have the 40 days and the 80 days, but she explains that by comparing some rituals around birth, that it was probably a way to announce the gender, because of course gender in both societies had also a very strong social role as well, which again seems... maybe 40 days and 80 days, maybe 80 days is much more positive than 40 days. We know when spending time the first weeks of your child's birth, spending time with your child is very precious, because a lot of things are happening during these first weeks when you stay with your kids and you've got this very strong connection. So there's more connection with the girl of newborn. Yes?
You have told us that the Torah text gives no reason for why there's a distinction between a boy, a girl, and a child. No explicit reason, but the text does say that the woman should undergo blood purification.
Mm-hmm.
So a reason could be given there that it is to do with blood purification.
Mm-hmm.
As Janet has pointed out, the female child is a giver of life, but the female child is also a producer of blood. Mm-hmm. So there are two females involved here.
So
That's twice the need for blood purification.
Interesting, yes, absolutely, you're right.
I read something, and it might have been in the Devar Torah from the Rabbinic study, that there's one argument that because that the circumcision of the boy cuts off half of it, because that's also a sort of blood offering kind of thing, so it cuts it back because the kid's taken half of the time.
So that's the only difference in terms of structure in the text.
Everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and then circumcision is the only thing that is different. So it probably plays a role as well. Now, my question for you and for us, when we read all these commentaries, and yesterday when we were talking about purity and impurity, someone came to me and said, "Oh, this is very antiquated. And do we really need to bother with this kind of questions? And if you think, looking outside now, people, going on with their lives, and I don't know, going to shopping or to do some running, and walking their dogs. What do we do with this text?
In a week where the reporters come out on the failings of the maternity hospital in Shropshire, we might think about the focus that needs to be given to somebody who's given birth.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yes, so yeah, I saw that as well. Gosh, it's very scary. Yeah, shouldn't happen anymore. Yeah.
And I think sometimes related to that, the pressure on women to be perfect mothers, to be able to perfectly do this or that or whatever, and oh my goodness, well, you're meant to breastfeed, so it's a matter with you that you're not able to feed your child, and all of these things that maybe at least, if you think about what this means and the importance that it puts on a mother-child bond, or even parent-child bond, because of course if there was no adoption at that time, but these days the arguments and the push for parental leave when you adopt a child so that you can properly have the time to bond with the child and not have all the external pressures.
I guess, that's an interesting thought that, of course, the 33 or 66 days are more to do with the temple, which is not very central to most of their lives at that time, but it gives the idea you need time to process a birth, you need time to process a new situation, you need time to understand. So maybe when it's a baby girl, but just adding their I don't know how to call it, their femininity, as you said, both of you actually, girls will be also provider of life, but we don't know. So that's the short and simple answer. We don't know. We can extrapolate, but I think what's important is the notion of time. To give time for a moment like giving birth to a child. But okay.
But also purity and impurity for us as liberal Jews is not that important. But for lots and lots of Jews it is really important. And the mikvah and their life and the pattern of their months and their weeks and their years, it's vital for them. And we may not think of it as
You're absolutely right, yes. So I read a commentary that says, at the end, there's a 3 steps process. So there's the birth, 7 days or 14 days, 33 or 66, and then at the end, the sacrifice is given to go back to normal. And of course, they don't talk about mikveh in Torah, but what happens in a traditional community when a woman has given birth to a child, she goes to the mikveh every month after the nida, and she goes also after giving birth. So there's this idea of, now the question of purity, oh gosh, it's...
And the interesting thing to me is that, because if you actually read Torah and read the stuff about purification, that it also applies to men when they've had nocturnal emissions. And I don't seem to see a lot of men lined up in front of the mikveh, but there should be, if they were actually following the law. So I find it fascinating that the letter of the law is for the women, but the letter of the law is not for the men, because...
there's also occasions...
lined up every morning.
Yeah, but...
What do you think about it?
No, absolutely, I agree, yes. Yeah.
Between certain ages.
I don't want to think about it.
It just always makes
Do you think also, presumably, it was preferable to have boys rather than girls in that society? And possibly they thought if you had one boy, you might be more likely to have another. So they would start having more boys more quickly. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's nonsense.
So
that's if you had one boy and you only have to wait a little bit, with any luck, the woman will have another boy fairly soon.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't want too many girls, so delay it a bit.
I think that there's something absolutely true in what you said, because remember, in this society, and this is a text written by the priests, by the Kohanim, and the status of someone goes through the father. It's only later that your status comes from a mother. So it was very important to have a lineage with boys because it gives the status of yeah.
But at this point, isn't there be more than one wife for each husband? So, actually, it's all shared anyway. It's not like there's so much pressure on women because he's got 2 or 3 wives. Imagine.
I don't know if the priest had 7 wives. I mean, in the book of Genesis, they had, happily 2, 3, 4 wives. I don't know was exactly the...
That's actually something really interesting because there are still a fair number of polygamous groups in the area where I grew up. And it actually did work that the existence of the sister wives, that they would actually take over monitoring the older children and cooking the meals and everything. So that actually the women, after giving birth, did have a proper time to just be with the baby and not have to worry about cleaning the house and doing everything else. So that is interesting. That could have been...
So it's a good thing that you have
it's not always a bad thing, let's put it that way.
I mean, if it works, it means that some people have
horrible polygamous cults where children are married off, girls are married off at 13 to 60-year-old men. But then there were certainly polygamous groups in Utah where it really worked because some women took care of the kids and other women worked and were lawyers and doctors. And in fact, Utah was the first state that sent women to become doctors when there was a medical school open that allowed women in back east. And because of the existence of polygamy, there was actually a lot of women went. And in the 1860s, most of the doctors in Utah were women because they could go away and be trained and spend all that time being in medical school, whereas the men couldn't because there were the crops and everything that had to be brought in, and the other wives were actually then watching kids. And so for a couple of years, the women were off back east training to become doctors, and most of the women were doctors, so it was not unusual in Utah to run into doctors.
That's interesting.
Women.
Yeah. And because other women were looking after the kids
Other women
and
were looking after the kids in the houses, and the men were farming and doing what was necessary for the men to do because it was much more of an agricultural society at that point.
Okay.
Interesting stuff about.
Yeah. Thank you. It was an interesting conversation about this puzzling piece of Torah. And of course, we haven't solved anything, but it's more about asking the questions, really. Right, so we are going to conclude our service with the Kaddish now. And so on this Shabbat, we remember Molly Simon, the mother of Fleur Standring. We remember Kurt Hellman, the brother of June Wertheim. Louise and Sadie Green, the parents of Myra Halfin. And my mother, Mary Sim. So, Harry Bloom passed away yesterday morning, and so usually we say the Kaddish after the funeral, but we mention a name. So Harry Bloom passed away, and so this Thursday we have the funeral of Mike Barnato here at noon, and next Monday the 11th at 12:15 the cremation of Harry Bloom. I think it's in Putney Vale, yes, yeah. So it's a sad time for KLS, a very sad time. Any other name you would like to remember? Please stand. We're on page 524. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברך יבוטה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה. יתברר וישתבר ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם ואמרו amen. Please be seated. So before we sing Adon Olam, and Sandra, I need to apologize for you, but I've decided for an Adon Olam that you don't like. So
Because you don't like it. And why you decide it.
and you don't turn up, so it's really... Anyway, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. I cannot see any... So I'm going to check my my email. So we've started a new refugee matching scheme with Liberal Judaism, which is slowly taking off. I mean, there's no one at the moment, so it will take some time for the information to go through and for people to apply. And to be honest, it's not made easy for people wanting to come to the UK. There's a loads in the newsletter, and thank you, Craig, for this very comprehensive newsletter and all the things that KLS is doing. It's just, I don't know, I can't find any word for... No, all the work you've been doing as a community is just amazing, and thank you. So there are some details about what you can bring to KLS. There's a fundraising concert, I was about to say dinner, but it's a concert on Saturday the 9th of July. In June before that, so just a note, save a date, Friday the 3rd of June, which is the Jubilee weekend. We'll have Friday night bagels at KLS, inviting all our friends or local neighbors. And this year we'll do, how is it called, Shavuot online with other LG rabbis. So every Friday morning we have at 9 o'clock a Torah study breakfast. So which is, I don't know what's going to happen to it, because originally we had 10 people, now it's between 2, 1, 3, so I don't know. And so if you really want this Torah study breakfast to continue, I will ask you to join, or not, it doesn't, it's fine. Call service next, no. Oh gosh, it's, I'm looking at the wrong one. Right. I mean, the first bits were correct.
Yeah, next week is the 9th.
Yes.
I'm on the week after too now.
Yes, absolutely. So the first part I said were still accurate. What else? Yeah, Thursday I mentioned it, the funeral for Mike. Friday, Shabbat at home at Liz and Simo. And Liz and Simo this week are celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. So it's going to be a great occasion to celebrate with them. Still Beitenu holiday, they're coming back on the 23rd. Saturday the 9th, which is next Saturday, book crushers at the synagogue.
Yeah, I think they've decided to put book crushers back a couple of weeks, so it's changed to the 23rd.
The 23rd, okay. So on the 23rd we have a bar mitzvah, Sava Juro. Sava will have his bar mitzvah in the afternoon at 1 p.m. because his family is from the States, so we've decided to push a bit further during the day. Vibrant Kingston Marin Cultural Celebration on Sunday, the Road Theatre. And all the things, oh gosh, when I look at that.
Keep booking the Seder.
Oh, yes.
Communal Seder, 16th of April. And the Kit Tea Party on Sunday, the 24th of April.
Thank you. Loads of food. Huh? Yes?
Perhaps you should advise people who might go to Liz and Seymour's house for Shabbat at home that if they've been before, they shouldn't go back to the same house.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So Liz and Seymour have moved. They've moved to Twickenham. Teddington.
Where all the best people live.
All the good people are there. So maybe we can move the synagogue there as well.
A little satellite.
Yeah.
If they booked, they'll get an email advising them that.
Yes. So we won't communicate the address like this in an open forum for obvious reasons, but it will be nice. Yeah, a nice celebration. Okay. I don't know. Please stand. מי ששיקד את שמו בבית הזה, הוא ישכין ביניכם אהבה ואחווה ושלום ורעות. May the one whose presence dwells in this synagogue and in your homes cause love and harmony, peace and friendship to dwell among us. Adonai oz le'amo yiten. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Eternal God, grant strength to your people. Eternal God, bless your people with peace. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to you who came online.